Hi, my name is Devin Vanneman, and this is my presentation portion of my oral history report. Per the instructions of the report, I interviewed someone in their 50s, 60s, and 70s about media consumption and how it was for them growing up and how it is nowadays and how it differed from their children's media consumption in comparison. Interestingly, and I didn't plan this, but I actually interviewed someone who was 53, 63, and 73 years of age. So there was a nice age gap amongst them all. So let's get into it. Krotoy and Hoynes, the authors of Media and Society, argue that media surrounds us. Our everyday lives are saturated by the internet, the television, radio, movies, recorded music, newspapers, books, magazines, and so much more. And I wouldn't disagree with this argument, especially in today's society with the advancements in technology that allows us to have media readily available at our fingertips. It's there when we want it, and however much we want, we have access to it. What I learned, however, though, by doing these interviews um, with individuals that were in their 50s and 60s and 70s is that this wasn't always the case. There was a time when television broadcasting would shut off. You could turn the TV on, but nothing would be there. And nothing would be there until the next morning when you turned the TV back up and they actually started broadcasting again. And there was a limited amount of channels too. They all said they remember like two, four, or seven, and they didn't really remember anything beyond those major channels. And furthermore, I learned by interviewing John James, who's 53, and Donna Vanneman, who's 63, and Richard Norton, who's 73, that they all remember watching television as a family um, when they were growing up. This, however, changed by the time they were raising their children. When there used to be just one television set in the home, by the time their children were growing up, they said every room in the house had a television set, and there was a lot more viewing programs or viewing options available. And on that note, almost all of them in unison um, said that whether it was radio, television, movies, sound recordings, that the programs or the programming was wholesome. It was family oriented and clean. There were no ratings that they remember. There was no R, PG, PG-13, NC-17 explicit lyrics on music. Nothing was really considered offensive. And now I know this could be subjective. However, they all drew the same conclusion, and they all stated there was nothing that they themselves were actually prohibited from seeing or listening to. That they just remember programming being very clean. Um, each person I interviewed experienced media in a different way as they were growing up. For Donna and Jim, music meant a lot to them growing up than it did for Richard. Donna viewed music as a social outlet. She would hang out with her friends. Um, they would talk about music. She said there was a lot of dances that she attended growing up, and she went to a lot of concerts. John was so taken by music that he wanted to be a part of it as a composer. He learned how to play music, not just listen to it. And for Richard, he said the movies were more important to him, and it was solely for the entertainment value. But he did say that he would see the cowboys and the heroes of the action movies that he would watch, and he would want to imitate them. Um, what I learned was that media has definitely changed over the years, and it's still evolving and changing to this day. Um, as a father, I compare my media consumption growing up with my sons, and there was a lot more available for me in comparison to John, Donna, and Richard. However, there's even more available for my son, and as a father, I have to be on top of what my son is taking in. There's a lot of offensive and explicit content that I don't want him viewing at such a young age. And my son's 7. And lastly, after conducting these interviews, as I mentioned earlier, a resounding theme started to appear. Every person interviewed stated, like I mentioned, that movies, music, television, radio content was a lot cleaner when they were growing up. There was not as much content as nowadays, but it was cleaner. Families gathered around the television set to watch together. I thought that was very interesting, in that they would eat dinner and then they would go into the living room and all watch together before going to bed. And like I said, they all said there was no offensive content, and that could be subjective, but they all three said it without being prompted to. The other thing that stood out to me was that they did not spend a lot of time listening to the radio or going to the movies per se. They preferred being a part of social gatherings. They liked face to face interactions. Media didn't consume their everyday lives. It was something that was available to them. It was something that was there, and a lot of times it was just for entertainment value. Um, but they didn't have smartphones, computers, tablets to distract them. If you go outside nowadays, it'll be rare to find somebody not on their phone. Um, this wasn't what it was for them growing up, and essentially it really wasn't how it was for me growing up either. Cell phones really didn't become popular and common until I was about 16. But if they wanted to speak to someone, they didn't send a text. They called them on the phone, they wrote a letter, or they went to see them in person. And in comparison to how things are today, we are more connected than ever before. Media surrounds our everyday lives. Media consumption has definitely changed over the years, but so has this content. I've linked the interviews in the video description if you want to listen to the interviews. They're YouTube videos, however, it's just the audio, being that I didn't film the meetings. But I just want to take this time to thank you for watching this presentation, and I hope you have a blessed day.